I divorced my husband because he went to watch a game while I was in labor. Marriage is not for the weak. It is not a journey that everyone should embark on. I know this from experience, and that is why I say this with all confidence. My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and it has been 5 long years of different things. The amount of different emotions that run through me on a daily basis is nothing compared to what I have felt in the last 5 months. But they are also what contributed to the array of emotions that I have towards my husband and my marriage. Like most couples, we were in love when we first met. We were even high school lovers. We were one of those couples that had everything planned out. When we started dating, we discussed when we wanted to get married, when we wanted to start having kids, and what we would name our children. We discussed all manner of things. What I noticed then was that all his answers aligned with mine. We never had any contradicting opinions. All my no's were his no's and all my yes were his yes. I did not see it as a problem then. Instead, I saw it as a sign that we were a perfect fit for each other. Another observation I made was that my friends were against him. They did not want us to date. They said he was a fake and he was only pretending. But I did not see all this part. What I always saw was a loving and caring boyfriend who would do anything to be at my side. On multiple occasions, he had dropped whatever he was doing to come to visit me because of one complaint or the other. He always acted like a mother hen, always guiding and watching after me. I can vividly remember a scenario that occurred one day. When we were still in college, I had complained about having menstrual pain over the phone, and Jake willingly and urgently rushed out of his class to come attend to me. That day really meant a lot to me. As he was coming, he also brought drugs and comfy food that would help reduce the pain. That day changed something in me. My heart melted and I was just convinced that he was the one for me. No matter what my friends and people were saying, I held Jake tight, not letting him from my grasp. As much as we loved ourselves, we also had a lot of disagreements. This disagreement was not based on contradicting opinions. I would have appreciated such disagreement. Instead, they were based on behavioral issues, and it was always my fault. Jake always complained about how I was acting at a point. His nagging was constant, always complaining about how I should sit, talk, eat and behave. It became very overbearing and overwhelming. At one point, I could not take any of it and I had to speak up. Jake also had issues, but I understood because he was human after all. He could not be perfect. I never for once complained about the behavior he displayed that I was not pleased with. Looking back now, I think that was a big error on my part. I believe now that I should have spoken up, because if I did, I would not be in the situation that I was right now. Although we moved past that stage, I still regret not speaking about it. Besides our usual banter and his correcting me publicly in a disrespectful way, we were good. I think one of the major reasons I took whatever Jake dished out to me was because I did not want to lose him, and I did not know what I wanted for myself. I just jumped at the first chance I had of finding love without really understanding what it meant to be in love. I took what Jake gave me as the definition of love, and that drew a guide for how I reciprocated love to either him, my friends, or my family. Like I said before, my friends were not in support of the relationship, but I could easily sweep their opinion under the rug because they were just friends. But soon my parents and siblings joined in this rampage against my relationship with Jake. When my parents started disapproving, I don't know why I did not see that as a green light to end what was going on. Instead, all I did was speak to Jake and tell him to change, since my parents did not like our relationship. I, myself, did not know what was wrong or what the issue was. I had no idea what my parents did not like about him, but I knew he had to change since they complained about him. I should have been suspicious when all of a sudden all the noise about him not being good for me died down. After about a month or two of telling him to change, my parents changed as well. They began to ask about him every time I visited. They also started calling him my husband. The change was quite fast, and I should have thought of it twice before tying the knot with him. But like usual, I did not put much thought to it. We eventually finished college, and I graduated well. Jake could have done better, but it was not all that bad. A week after our graduation and the ceremony that came with it, Jake informed me that his parents wanted to see me. I can still remember how I felt that day. I was nervous. I wondered if that was how Jake felt when he met my parents. If he was nervous, he did not let it show. When the day came to meet his parents, I remember changing my outfit so many times that I lost count. I finally settled for a yellow summer dress that looked good with my skin color. Many thoughts ran through my mind as we approached his parents' house. It took Jake holding my hands and giving me a reassuring side hug before I could calm myself together. When we arrived, his parents were so welcoming. His mother had a very bright smile on her face, while his dad just stood in a corner observing everything that was going on. From observation, I could tell that both his parents were quite opposite, and that was what brought them together. That was what made them attractive. All through my short stay at his parents' house, I could see how much they loved each other. Anyone with eyes could tell. They sat down beside each other all through the day. It was as if his father was joined to his mother's hip, because everywhere she went he followed. He was also very helpful and considerate. I just enjoyed watching them. I remember asking myself if this was how Jay's and I relationship would be when we got married. Once we sat down for dinner and were done eating, the questioning came in. This time it was just us females at the table. The men had volunteered to do the dishes, giving us time to have a woman-to-girl conversation. His mother asked me some deep questions that I did not all have answers to. I answered the ones I could, and the ones I could not answer, I took home to reflect on it. I thought that was the only round of parent conversation I was getting that night, but I was wrong. After Jake's mother was done questioning me, his father took the hot seat. My conversation with his father was not that of question and answer. It was more of a conversation and a counseling style. He told me things I needed to know about Jake and more things I needed to know about the family. I was happy that I had that visit then. It solidified my expectations and helped me decide on what to do next. After some couple of weeks, Jake started hinting at a proposal. I believed it was still too early because we just graduated from college, and to some extent, I thought he was teasing me. Jake had always been one to pull a prank. Although I had my doubts and still believed it was early, I still wanted the proposal deep down within me. One day, Jake called me into his room and we stylishly had a conversation about how I wanted the proposal, which automatically told me that he had been thinking about this for a while. I poured out my heart concerning how I wanted the day to be, and by the next weekend, everything we discussed was a reality. I was so shocked and overwhelmed. I was also happy and pleased that he listened to what I wanted and made it come true. That day, I had no second thoughts as I screamed a bold and loud yes when he asked me to marry him. We did not waste much time planning our wedding. This was as a result of all the help we got from his mother. She was so involved when it came to the planning and setup. She also gave me a listening ear, quietly paying attention to all I needed while inputting her thoughts on what would be better. She was extremely helpful. In the span of 1 month, we had already ticked off most of the things on our list. The hall was already booked as well as the caterers and event planners. We sorted out the best photographers to capture the most important moments of our lives. Everything was in place and we were all happy. By the end of the second month, I became Mrs. Emily Jake and I was at my happiest. As happy as I was, the next 3 months changed my happiness. Something about Jake changed. I had no idea if it was our marriage that caused this change or if he had always been like this but was pretending the whole time. I felt that it was still too early for him to be tired of me already. We were just 3 months in. Sometimes, I even thought that I was the one overanalyzing things. I say this because Jake's mood and behavior fluctuate. Sometimes, he is so in love with me, and other times he does not have my time or is angry and pissed at me for petty reasons. This nature continued until our first pregnancy. I saw a different side of Jake. Meanwhile, his constant change of behavior was getting to me. I did not know how to react or act around him. I was always thinking to myself what I should do so as not to step on his toes or upset him. I always had to be careful so that he remained in a good mood and pleased with me. Whenever Jake was in a bad mood or angry with me, he acted like I was not existent. The way he treated me whenever he was in such a mood was nothing to write home about. I always did everything in my power to ensure that his mood was better before the end of the day or else he wouldn't sleep in home, and due to that I would be restless the whole night. I also have to point out that little things pissed him off. Things like I did not serve his food in his favorite dishware or I did not place his work bag in the right position. When I was pregnant with our first child, things changed. It was as if I became an egg to him. He did not want me to do anything, and unlike before he had my time, he became available. He followed me everywhere, even down to the restroom. He was always present for my doctor's checkups and all the places I needed to be at. He automatically and suddenly switched back to the Jake I knew before we got married. At one point, I was even scared of giving birth, thinking that his behavior would change again. Although I had this fear, I still anticipated every day for the next 9 months of the pregnancy. Not just because I was expecting a child, but also because of the love, care and attention I got from my husband. That pregnancy showed me that Jake still loved me. He just had a difficult time showing it, or that was what I thought. After our child was born, 2 weeks later, Jake started to withdraw gradually again. This time his attention was not focused outside. He was extremely focused on our child. I liked this, but I also did not like it. He did not pay any attention to me anymore. We had moved to the stage where we only said monotonous words to each other. I usually try to get him talking, but he would rather spend his time looking at his son than talking to me. This behavior continued for a while, and after Zion clocked 2 years his attention went back to what normally took it. At that time, I did not know what Jake was always looking for outside, but I soon discovered that he was always going to watch games with his friends. According to him, this was a ritual for them, something he still has to uphold even though he is married and a father. When I found out that was what he used his time for whenever he was outside, I was relieved because I had considered that maybe he was cheating on me. That was a period in our marriage when I was consumed with fear. I could not even approach him to verify the information because I was scared that I would get on his bad side. So, when I asked his friend one time and he confirmed to me that Jake was always over, I was extremely relieved. Although I was relieved that he was busy watching a game rather than cheating on me, his obsession was on the verge of destroying our marriage and he was not concerned at all. I eventually got tired of constantly complaining and took my fate for what it was. I was the one who picked and laid the bed, therefore I must lie on it. We started living like strangers under the same roof, and Jake was not even bothered in the slightest way possible. He did not even pay attention to our son, Jerry, who was now growing so fast and craving his father's attention. I tried my best to ensure that Jerry did not feel the absence of his father, but there was only so much that I could do. The needle that broke the camel's back was when I was pregnant for the second time. This was 4 years after the birth of Jerry. I was very happy when I found out that I had conceived. I did not waste any time sharing the news with Jake because I knew that once he heard the good news, he would dedicate all his time to me. At that moment, I was desperately in need of his attention. I deeply wanted to know if I still meant something to him. The pregnancy hormones were also not helping my craving for my husband's attention. To my uttermost surprise, the reaction I thought I would get from my husband when he heard the good news was not what I got. Instead of being excited like he was the last time, he was indifferent. He showed no emotion at all. All he said was that it was good news. I did not know what to think about this reaction at all. It was as if he was confirming the doubts I had in my heart. Doubt of him not loving me anymore. I felt it was time to discuss with his parents concerning this behavior because it was getting worse by the day. I visited his parents' house and told them about Jake's behavior. They promised that they would speak with him, which they did, but nothing changed. That instead angered him and he withdrew and worsened in his way. His behavior got so bad that when I was in labor he was not present. He was busy watching a match. I called multiple times but he did not pick up. It was after I phoned my sister who lived nearby to take me to the hospital that he called back. When he called, his tone was harsh and I automatically knew that he was upset that I disrupted his activity. I told him the reason I called, saying that my water had broken. I did not inform him that my sister was already taking me to the hospital because I wanted him to come immediately. Though I did not tell, he still asked me to wait till his game was over. I was so pissed and angry, but the pain did not let me lash out at him. At that moment, I did not care if he would hate me more or not, so I ended the call abruptly. When we arrived at the hospital, I was taken to a theater where I would give birth. I was in labor for so long and my husband was still not present. It was as if my baby was waiting for his father because the moment I heard the nurse say her husband is here, my child came out easily. During a labor period, I had determined that I was going to end things with Jake. I'd rather go through a divorce than anticipate love from my partner. I was fed up and my mind was finalized. The moment my child was handed to me and Jake was allowed into the room, I asked him for a divorce, not minding the fact that I had just spent hours trying to push my baby. He was so shocked at my request, but I was not going back on my decision.